Hello and welcome to Connected, episode 377. I'm Jason Snell, and I am joined as usual by James Thompson.
It's good to be finally back. Thanks for looking after the show for the last few weeks. Some interesting guest choices also.
Well, yes, of course. We're also joined by Mr. John Voorhees, who never, ever misses an episode of this show. Hi, John.
Hello. I've never missed. No, I don't think I've ever been off this show. It's been tough sometimes, but yeah, I'm a bad penny. I just keep turning up.
That's good. I mean, I like the commitment that James seems to have failed to make to this show. So,
well, look, some of us have things to do. So.
It hurts.
Wow. I think that cuts deep.
It's true. It's true, but it hurts. Oh, James. All right. We should stop with the nonsense and get down to business because we got a packed show. The show document is overflowing this time because it's the Connected Holiday Special.
It is indeed.
And of course, as always, we begin the Connected Christmas episode with our gift exchange, the Triple J gift exchange, and we open our presents. It's a tradition like none other.
It doesn't feel like a year since we last did one of these.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, it seems like a long time, but hey, it comes around quickly. That's COVID time for you.
Time is flexible. It happens. It's like, what is time even now? But I love this. It's a great tradition. We go around round robin style, as is our tradition, and give each other presents. They're not on the show. The presents happen at a later date or immediately during the show. Or it's not something like I don't have this stuff here because it's supposed to be a surprise, you see, and we can't trust one another to not open the packages. So anyway, James, why don't you kick off the round robin? What do you have for me in particular?
Yeah, I know you're important here. So I have commissioned your favorite artist, Jen Bartel, I believe, to draw you a sketch of a Micronaut holding up a similarly colored iMac.
Oh.
Kids, if you don't know what Micronauts are, you were probably not a child in the late 70s. They were kind of like translucent robots that I'm going to say, without any shred of evidence, that they were the inspiration for the original iMac. And I'm just going to drop a picture of one.
Jen Bartel is my favorite artist, comic book artist working probably. And Micronauts are a formative toy from my childhood. You post the picture. These are Time Traveler. A lot of the Micronauts were made of die-cast metal, so they're way heavier and like higher quality than you'd expect a cheap toy to be. But they needed. Actually, this fits in with our conversations about Apple and Apple always wanting to have like good, better, best and keeping its profit margins. You got to have a low-cost product. So I think, in fact, Time Traveler was like the iMac or the MacBook Air of the Micronauts because he was made more cheaply so he could be sold at a lower price than the rest of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cheap, clear plastic.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, that is delightful. I can't wait to see a modern artist who I love drawing a Micronaut and an iMac. Is it a G3 iMac or is it one of the 24-inch iMacs, James?
No, it's a G3 one. I mean, you've got to go for the classic.
True translucent plastic compatriot. Yeah. Okay, John, here's yours. For you... See, this is going to be so disappointing after that because James has just outdone me again. I wrote a shortcut for you.
Oh, nice.
Just for you.
What does it do?
Okay, it's going to wish you a happy holiday. If you run it tomorrow or this week, it's going to say Merry Christmas. But it varies based on the date. It will always wish you something, but it changes throughout the year. I have some caveats. It doesn't work on the Mac right now. Shortcuts crashes. What can you do? I hope that it'll work at some point. There'll be a holiday where it'll say, I can't believe I'm working on the Mac. It doesn't work right now. And you can't really automate it to display like every day like I wanted it to. But you could make a widget on your iOS home screen that you could tap and then it would look and see what holiday it was. And anyway, I hope you like it. It's just for you. And it's if I could mint it as an NFT so it could only be run by you, I would.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
But I can't. So it's just a shortcut for you.
It's just a shortcut it's a widget that I poke at every day of the year. Thank you.
Yeah. And you won't be that surprised because there aren't that many holidays, but who knows?
Perfect.
Okay, John, what do you have for James?
All right. For James, I made your trophy. I made you the world's greatest calculator app trophy. And it's really meant to sit right alongside your Eddie from Macworld back in the day. So, but I felt like that wasn't quite enough. I mean, trophies, no big deal, right? You've got 1 million of them. I also got you some beard oil because we know, James, how precious you are about your beard.
Oh, boy.
I hope that this trophy is quite shiny so that I can look in it and I can see my beard. Because, yes, you are right that everybody in the UK really likes their beards.
James, I'm just going to remind you again Who got you that Macworld trophy?
someone in the room.
It was a legitimate process, but who is your guy in the room? Okay.
There is no collusion in the trophy market.
All right, James. What do you have for John?
So I have got John. This is very special. It is a year's membership. And you know how we like to support other podcasts. Mm-hmm. So it's a year's membership to the Prompt Pro. And I think they're on episode 434 now. It's a great podcast. I think it's about how to use the Terminal app or something. But it's by friends of the show, Mike, Federico, and Stephen, or as we call them, the MFS.
I mean, nice. Some people pronounce it MFs, but MFS is more polite.
This is a family show. But I think we should have them on our show one day.
Oh, that would be a good idea. You know, who would have thought that you could get over 400 episodes all about the terminal? I mean, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those guys are they work hard, right? So
yeah,
you should do that. Well, relay.fm/membership if you want to be a member of our show, Connected, or of the Prompt. You can do that right there. Okay, John, what do you have for me?
I do have something for you, Jason. I talked to Apple and I pulled some strings and I got them to agree to stop fiddling around with the Photos app so you could have a year off from writing your book. And they went a step further though. They said that they're going to take that engineering time and they're going to implement a proper audio system on the iPad so that you can start recording all of your shows on your iPad Pro.
I am impressed that you talked to somebody who has that power, but I guess you're that well connected, which
I am.
Fits with the name of the show, so that makes sense. That's probably why the show is called what it is, I would think.
That's where it started.
That John is so well connected. All right, last in the Christmas gift exchange is me for James. James, I bought you a pound of dice. Did you know that they sell dice by the pound? They do.
I did.
It's assorted dice. It weighs a pound. I'm sorry I didn't do it in metric.
I did the conversion, and I did actually weigh some dice just there. And I think that's about 13 complete sets worth of dice. So that's great.
Yes, I have to warn you, they are just loaded by weight, so I can't. They may not be sets at all. They may be just kind of weird dice. They might have weird, like, textures or something. I don't honestly know, because that's what happens when you buy dice by weight. But I hope that there are some gems in there. I
think you shouldn't use the term loaded when you're talking about dice. Otherwise, I might get in trouble with Tony.
All right. Well, that was great. I think we're all looking forward to getting our gifts in the gift exchange. Let's do this again next year. I love it.
It's a holiday tradition.
We have, of course, another great tradition for the end of the year coming up. But first, James is going to tell you about our sponsor this week. James?
So this episode of Connected is brought to you by Unchecked Corruption and the Lifetime Award-winning PCalc. The only scientific calculator that can order food from local restaurants, tells you when your website is down, and is also a pizza oven. Jason, I believe you had to calculate a special number recently. How did that go?
It didn't go great, honestly, because it was I was trying to multiply and then I need to clear the calculator, and I can never remember the difference between the AC button and the C button. I just pressed the AC button a bunch of times. Is that what I'm supposed to do?
Well, that sounds wonderful. Go to peakout.com/connected and you can save yourself the time it would take to Google for it. Thanks to PeakOut for their support of this show, and by support I mean the large envelope of cash.
Thank you to our sponsors. With that, it brings us to that time. I know everybody who listens to Connected wants this. It is time for the Pickies, our annual contest.
The Pickies.
We do our picks for what is going to happen next year. And so I have to ask everybody, please stand for the reading of the Pickies Charter. Rule number 1, there are 2 types of Pickies, the annual Pickies and WWDC Pickies. No other Pickies shall ever be introduced.
2, the winner of the annual Pickies is named Grand Admiral Pickerton and retains the title for a full year.
Number 3, the WWDC Pickies winner is named the San Jose Shindig King and retains the title until the next WWDC is held.
Number 4, order for annual Pickies and WWDC Pickies is based on the winner of the previous year.
Number 5, the winner goes second. The loser flips a coin to determine who goes first and who goes third. Jason is the only person allowed to flip a coin, and he cannot use an app to do so.
Number 6. To earn any points, everything written down in the prediction document must come true.
Number 7, there are no half points awarded in any round, but other fractions are allowed.
8. 3 points are awarded for any pick deemed correct in the first round.
9. 2 points are awarded for any pick deemed correct in the second round.
10, 1 point will be awarded for correct picks in the lightning round.
11. Any pick that comes true in the first half of the year is worth double.
12. Your total percentage of wrong answers will be multiplied by 5 and deducted from your final score.
Okay, I got to jump in here because this is one of those places that I said I wanted last time. I said I wanted to do a rule change.
Yeah, fair enough.
As many listeners may remember, we had an argument about what percentage meant and whether if it was 25%, you multiplied by 25 or you multiplied by 0.25.
Right.
So I want to specify we mean decimal percentage so that we're deducting 1.25 instead of 125.
Yes, in my former life as a lawyer, we would have said this in a contract, as we'd say that it was expressed as a fraction. So the percentage is expressed by a fraction is what I would say.
Yeah, it's almost as if this rule was added so we'd need to use a calculator at some point.
Well, okay, let's do expressed as a fraction. I trust the law language of John here, as always.
That's fair.
All right. Number 13. The 2 other hosts must agree that at least one of your picks is not obvious and that one of your picks is pretty cool.
All right. 14. No picking things not actually unrelated to Apple or the tech industry.
So again, this is a place where we need to change this. We need to remove one of the negatives from that statement.
There's a lot of negatives.
I'm going to redo all my picks.
Oh, I see. It's not actually unrelated. Oh no.
Yeah, you see, Boolean logic will get you every time.
It's the opposite.
John, do you have any law recommendations for us here?
How about something really simple like everything has to be related to Apple or the tech industry?
Okay. Great. Let's do that. Everything. I'm going to do that right now.
Every pick
has to be related. Every pick has to be. Okay. That's our new rule. Good.
I think that was that's a record there. That was a triple negative we had going there.
Well, we are the triple J. So
I wish whoever wrote this.
Somebody
document.
needs an editor.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, number 15. No picking things that the picker of the pick could make come true by themselves or by inducing others, including, and this is important, taking a job at Apple.
We all know what that's regarding. Number 16, no picking things that are not provably true or false. Whether or not you can prove a negative is best left for the philosophers.
Number 17, no altering the production document after the show is over. We all remember what happened in 2020. As an aside, I'm going to mint this as an NFT, so we all know that means it'll be unalterable and uncopyable.
That's good. On the blockchain, that's where it belongs.
Yes.
Okay, number 18, and we're into the important stuff here. After the scoring is complete, each host must place the official Picky's refrigerator magnet in the proper configuration on their refrigerator for the entirety of the next year. And that's winner at the center of the door, second place in the lower left corner, and third place in the lower right corner.
All right. That's right. We need to sell those next year because people are going to love those.
Yes.
Yeah. And I do want to put in a proposed rule change here because if your fridge door is not made from a ferrous metal like mine, you're allowed to use blue tack or some other adhesive substance to secure the magnets because they keep falling off my fridge.
I'm going to propose a separate rule that James needs to get himself a new fridge. Just saying.
Well, I mean, if it comes out of the show's budget, then fine.
See, I don't think this rule change is necessary because all the rules say is that you must place the magnets in the configuration. It doesn't say anything about, I mean, they're magnets, so I guess it...
So if they fall on the floor, I could just put them away?
No, they must remain in the configuration, but you can place them there by any means. So if you wanted to like super glue them on or something, you could do that, but you have to be prepared to pull them off and move them.
Well, I don't need to because I win every year. So, it's fine. I can just super glue them.
That's not true. That's not true. You don't win every year.
Won last year.
You say that now because...
he's doing it again.
Yeah, every year. Number 19, that's what you do every year. You claim you always win every year, but you don't always win every year.
We shall see.
Number 19, the winner of each competition will be given access to the official competition Twitter accounts at WWDC Shindig King and at Picky's Admiral, as appropriate. All right, and that's the end of the rules. Everybody can sit back down. That was the the official Pickies charter being read. 2021 winner was James. Just to recap, he is both Admiral Pickerton and the San Jose Shindig King.
Yeah, as always.
No, not as always. Okay, let's just get to the picks. Let's start arguing about this. People want to hear the picks, and per the rules, I need to flip a real coin to determine who goes first and who goes third. John, I'm going to let you call it heads or tails, and if it comes up the one you called, we got to specify all this because the shenanigans. If it comes up the one you called, you get to go first.
All right, I call tails.
All right, tails. Now how do I flip this thing? It came up tails. So you, John, get to go first. In the first round is the 3-point round. What do you have?
Well, my first prediction, my first picky, is that Apple's going to introduce a standalone display next year. And it's not one that's connected, obviously, to a laptop or to an iMac. I'm talking about a standalone display that costs less than a Pro Display XDR.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that we should have a rule about not being able to reuse your picks because you pick this every single year.
It's going to be true someday,
Someday.
right? Like, I like him throwing away his 3 points year after year after year on the white whale that is the standalone Apple display.
It's like AirPower. It's the new AirPower, I think.
I just want to officially handicap this that I fear that John is actually correct this time, and
I think it's
killing me that John won the coin flip because I think this is the year that 2022 is the year where it's going to happen.
So my pick is that Apple will introduce a Mac in 2022 that is more than twice as fast as any existing Mac from 2021.
All right. We need to clarify this, James. What do you mean by twice as fast? Come on.
Let us clarify this in terms of, say, the multi-core benchmark.
Or what is it? The Geekbench score.
Let's go with Geekbench as a good... because I think, the single core is probably not going to be twice as fast, but I think the multi-core is definitely... I'm figuring they're just going to add in some more processors, basically, into this thing of the sort of M1 Max style, but just with more processors.
So this is basically okay. So this is the 4-core. This is the rumored 4-die Mac Pro is probably what you're predicting here because a 2-die might not actually be twice as fast, which is
that's why I put in the padding to just say twice as fast because I figure if we get a 4-die one, it's definitely going to do it.
And my other question is about introduce as a term. How can we score it if it is introduced but not shipping?
Well, by the legal language of my prediction, I think that I would get the points.
I don't like that. I think it needs to ship.
All right, okay, fine. I this is my 3 points, but I will because.
Well, how can we get a Geekbench score if nobody has it? If it's just been announced,
what will happen is it will be in the hands of some journalists who will accidentally upload their Geekbench score, as happens every year.
Okay, actually, you know what? I'm going to give it to you. I think this is fair as it is because if there's no score, then you don't get it. There has to be somebody has to have a score, and I'll just point out to the rules, James. You can't upload a fake Geekbench score in order to win this, because we'll find out.
We'll figure it out.
That is covered under the rules of inducing others and so on. So
all right.
It has to be available on the internet. I mean, we're not talking about a Geekbench score that someone told you about that they ran and didn't upload. This has to be something that Jason and I can see on the web.
Well, my 3-point pick is going to kind of piggyback on John's a little bit because John stopped my pick there. I am going to say that iPadOS is going to finally get non-mirrored external display support.
Talk about the pick that comes up every single time. Jason,
I know.
You're a
it's you and
broken
me.
record.
I'm hoping that the picks will make it true. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm still going to hope against all evidence. I feel like everything is lining up. We have pointer support in iPadOS. We got the keyboard support in iPadOS. We got new windowing that was introduced in iOS 15. We've got that great standalone display that John is going to make happen with his pick.
Indeed.
And so I'm just going to ride in there and say, how would Apple do this without finally having it be the last piece of the puzzle for iPadOS? So that's my choice.
Well, I hope you're right. All right. Well, that's it for round 1. Why don't we head into round 2? And
okay.
I'm gonna kick it off with at WWDC, Apple will introduce a new home strategy that includes at least one new product. What do you guys think of that?
I think it's very vague, but
That's what scoring is all about.
Do they have an existing home strategy?
Oh, well,
No.
that's true. Maybe I should not say new. Apple will have a home strategy and will introduce a new home product.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this pick because I also want to believe that there will be something, and I like the vagueness of it because you can get these 2 points if you get that Amazon Echo
right, the screen
thing that has a screen and a center stage camera maybe and sits in your kitchen and is also a home pod. If they did the sound bar, if they do something we don't even know, bring back airport, like anything will get you that point. But honestly, I think I would still call this a non-obvious pick because it requires Apple to have a home strategy.
Yeah. Okay. So my pick, I'm going to be betting heavily on AR and VR in my picks this year. So if Apple doesn't do any of this, I'm just completely out of the running. So my pick is a developer kit will be introduced for Apple's mixed reality headset at WWDC, but the headset itself will not actually ship to consumers during 2022. Now, there's a couple of things that can trip me up here. One, if it's only an AR headset, then I don't know that I get the mixed reality. But I'm fairly sure that developers are going to get something, but I don't think consumers are going to get anything until next year.
I'm just going to read my pick now because it's in direct opposition to your pick. My pick is...
I noticed.
Anyone who wants an Apple headset will be able to buy one by the end of 2022 without becoming a developer. That's my choice. So you're saying there will be something, but it won't ship to consumers. And I will say that if you want to buy one, I'm not saying it'll be a good buy. I'm not saying it makes sense that people spend the money on it. But that regardless, if you want to get one, you'll be able to put down money to buy one by the end of 2022 without, because I knew you guys were going to ask, without spending $99 becoming a developer and then buying an Apple headset. They can just go get one. They can order one online or maybe go into the Apple store. I don't know.
Well, I think this is an interesting one because we're going to have some rules language on, be able to buy one. What does this mean? But I'm prepared to accept this as a pick.
How about order? Can I change it to order? Would that make it better or worse for you?
No,
Okay.
because you could order one and it doesn't ship until 2024. So
right.
I'm not going to let you have that.
Okay. I'll take it. John, you okay with it?
Yeah, I think I'm okay with this.
You're spoken like a man who's watching his two competitors kill each other while you just run on by.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, that's fair.
Says the man with the home strategy. All right, that brings us to the lightning round of the pickies. This is basically a draft. Multiple selections are allowed. We're going to do up to 5 rounds. You can drop out at any point if you want to chance it on the percentage deduction that's in the rules. You have to do some math to do that, so I leave that to James. But you can also do all 5 rounds, which is generally what we always do. We limited it to 5 because there was that one time that James picked 12 things, and the show was too long.
But it worked.
James also won this last time because he was using PCalc in the background.
Yeah.
It's
he
all
was
about
calculating his odds.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's really bad podcasting if you just drop out after one pick. But if it's strategically favorable, James will just do whatever he.
Yeah, where's the excitement in that? Where's the excitement?
Yeah, we usually do 5 picks.
I'm in this to win. I'm not in this for podcasting.
We know it. All right. So we'll alternate picks, no duplication of picks because it's a draft, and John won the coin toss. So John, what's your first pick in round 1?
All right, I'm going to say that Eddie Q is going to return to the next Apple keynote to talk about services, but he won't dance, unfortunately.
Oh, I love a stagecraft pick. This is like a non-stagecraft pick, but still stagecraft is involved. So Eddie appearance without dancing.
Yeah, it's been too long since we've seen Eddie. It's my favorite, literally my absolute favorite WWDC was the music one where Eddie and Drake were up there, and I'm hoping that we'll get that again. But I think the reality is we'll probably just get Eddie talking about services and maybe something else that's one of my other picks.
Okay,
I don't want to give it away and have one of you guys swipe it.
No spoilers. Okay, James.
Okay, mine is at least one Mac will be introduced in 2022 that is available in regular, Pro, and Max processor configurations at once.
All right. I was writing my Macworld article previewing the 2022 in the Mac, which I think might be posted just now. And I was thinking about this same thing, and I was trying to think. I'm just going to say it, James. Your pick. I saw it in the doc, and I added it to my article because I thought it was really interesting. But this is the part that I stumbled on: is what Mac model spans the M1 or M2 and the M1 Pro and the M1 Max. What do you have any thoughts? I mean, you're picking at least one, and that's fine. But I'm curious what you think is the most likely Mac to do that.
I think the iMac is one, and I think the Mac Mini might be another. But I think the iMac is probably my safe bet for this, that we are going to have, with the same industrial design, we are not the same colors, possibly, but the same industrial design, we're going to have a regular Pro and Max configuration that you can buy.
Very interesting. I could see it for the Mini too, but I think probably iMac is the better bet.
Yeah, I think the Mac Mini might be the better bet, but I'm also unclear whether they're going to something that maybe somebody could pick if they want to. But I wonder about if we're going to see a Mac Mini Pro, and if the reason that they have shipped the one Mac Mini and then the other Mac Mini is still on the price line is they may make a split there and have like an M1 Mac Mini and then the Pro and the Max be the Mac Mini Pro or something like that.
Right.
But I agree. I think James's best bet here is probably that they release an iMac Pro that comes in 3 chip configurations or something like, or a high-end iMac that comes in 3 chip configurations. Whatever it's called. Okay, my choice is going to be Universal Control ships before WWDC.
All right.
I mean, it's good to be optimistic.
See, this is the thing: is it seems obvious, and yet is it obvious?
Yeah, I don't know. It feels to me like this is the kind of thing that's going to ship in the spring when new M1 Macs, or not M1, but Apple Silicon Macs are introduced, because it's a perfect time to show it off again, is at a March or April event.
Right. Hey, remember this feature that we announced previously?
It still works, and it works with these new computers too.
I don't know. I think you cannot guarantee it, but I'm going to pick it because I'm optimistic that it'll ship before WWDC. Round 2, John, what do you have?
All right, round 2. I am going to go with something a little safer bet this time. I'm going to predict that the Notes app is going to gain smart folders based on both tags and other metadata.
Yeah, I think you're right. Strangely missing from iOS 15, right? Like
exactly.
It's in reminders, but it's not in Notes, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, this seems to be where the market's going as well. So yeah, I could see this certainly being a thing that Apple introduces.
Yeah, I bet they had that feature and then they just couldn't ship it, and they delayed it because it usually Notes and reminders move in somewhat of a lockstep, and for reminders to get those features,
right, they're usually pretty close.
And there's people will say it's Sherlocking and all that, but it's not, because if it's an obvious feature, I don't think it counts as a Sherlock.
Yeah. All right, James.
So mine, looking forward to the Mac Pro, the Apple Silicon Mac Pro will not support discrete graphics cards or any other form of PCIe cards for expansion. So like the new one, or the current one, it's an old school style, Power Mac type case that you can slap lots of cards in. But I think that is going to be a one-off, and I think they're going to have, I'm not saying it's going to be a perfect cube, but I wouldn't rule it out.
I am right now making myself a note for the story that I'm going to write in 2 to 3 years' time about that golden era of eGPUs that we had for about a split second with Macs. So
yeah.
I kind of am with you, James.
I think Apple just like at this point is like, we can beat like NVIDIA and all that at their own game. Whether they can or not remains to be seen. But I think they just don't feel they need the discrete graphics cards anymore. They can do it all in their own silicon.
Yes, because gaming doesn't require that. They've got they're the champions of casual gaming, and you can do that on Apple Silicon. Maybe you don't need a discrete GPU for that.
I agree with you about the GPU. I think that Apple's going to say, look, we'll sell you 128 GPU cores if you want, and that's going to need to be good enough. And I think what we've seen with for at least the markets that they really care about, that with the MacBook Pro with the high-end Pro Max chip.
Right.
No, Max chip, M1 Max, Pro Max. I'm so confused because they're Macs and they run the M1 Max chip. Anyway, they've shown that the GPU power is pretty good. So I'll get that. I think where you might get bitten here, James, is this any other form of PCIe cards, because what I think Apple might offer is pathways for storage and I/O expansion that might be internal. Storage especially takes up, I mean, I know you can add like things and chain them off with Thunderbolt, but I wonder if they've listened to customers who want to put beefy storage things inside a box that is all self-contained, and if that's the only expansion that they're going to offer.
I think all the expansion they're going to have is external. I don't think they're going to have any internal expansion.
Well,
I think because they've got, all the various Thunderbolts and whatever coming.
What about memory though, James? What about memory? I mean, I could see memory being a thing that would be an internal storage,
No, I think Apple will they'll sell 128 gigabyte thing, and that's going to have the majority of, it's going to cover the majority of customers, and they're not going to build a box that can be turned into something for anybody.
All right, that's that cool pick. I think it is definitely a not obvious pick. I'm gonna piggyback on John again. John, if you had lost the coin flip, this would have made me look much more original. But since you picked Apple Notes, I'm gonna go with that, and I'm gonna say Apple Notes is gonna get on the Notes cross-linking train in iOS 16. That they are going they're gonna do that thing where they're gonna do the Obsidian craft, Roam Research, et cetera thing. They're going to do it in a way that frustrates power users of those apps, but that Apple thinks is sort of an Apple-y way to do it for everybody else who uses Notes. So you combine that with the tags and other metadata and kind of like making Notes a more kind of like, Notes has come a long way, but it's still got more places that it could go. So I think they're going to ride that train.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I think they'll do it with like colorful little pills or something that are your links back instead of, those ugly, just text-based links. I think it'll be, if they do it, they'll do it a little bit like how they've done with tagging, with having a cloud of tags, but a cloud of links, maybe. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. It's kind of a power user feature, but it feels like Notes is ready for that kind of thing.
All right, good. I thank you for your endorsement. Yeah, we're hoping for big things for Notes in 2022 is what we're saying here.
All right.
Okay, what's your pick, John? Round 3.
For round 3, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that the 13-inch MacBook Pro is going to be discontinued, because I think what we're going to get, we're going to get a refresh of the MacBook Air, which is 13 inches, and we've already got the 14 and 16 of the new MacBook Pros. There's no place in the lineup for a 13-inch Pro at this point, I don't think. We'll have a beefier Air, and we'll have the 14 and 16, and that makes a lot more sense than having that oddball 13-inch MacBook Pro in the lineup.
I want to believe. I like, how I love it when blood fills the streets as Apple destroys products. Like, I love it. And this product is an odd one out, right? It's just there to hold down the bottom of the price list. And so I could see them updating it with the new chip options and taking off the touch bar, but otherwise leaving it kind of as it is. But I think you're right. It makes more sense for Apple to come up with a MacBook Air focused strategy. And I'm actually a little disappointed that we haven't heard rumors that Apple is going to do a couple MacBook Airs, maybe like a 12 and a 14 or a 13 and a 15. And there are rumors that they're going to make a big iPhone that's not a Pro Max, but just an iPhone Max, sort of like saying, look, we know you don't want to spend the maximum amount of money, but you want a bigger phone. So maybe at some point they could do that with a MacBook Air and like throw a bigger screen on a MacBook Air, but still let it be a MacBook Air and be cheaper instead of this 13 MacBook Pro nonsense. So
yeah, I mean, now that Apple is basically controlling all of the things, it's just a question of, what chip you put in which case. And they can do all sorts of things. And I think they should definitely be flexible enough that if you wanted a low end but big screen product, you can get one.
All right. James, what's your choice?
So continuing on the AR headset, VR headset, I think that Apple will announce that Apple Arcade will have AR and VR titles at the consumer launch of their headset.
Okay. I want to ask you about AR. You mentioned this in an earlier pick, and I want to ask about it again. Are you thinking that you're going to be able to like see out of these things, or is it going to be one of those things where that you're seeing a view of reality filtered through the cameras that are on the outside of it?
Oh, I think it'll be a view of reality filtered through cameras. I mean, I think that still counts as augmented reality, because what you're seeing is, as close as they can do it, it just looks like you're looking through a little window. But I think it's going to be entirely done through cameras, because projecting stuff directly into your eyes or whatever, I think that technology is too far away.
Yeah. Or even transparent lenses where they can reflect down like an overlay over, like that's asking a lot of engineers.
Yeah, I think like if they're going to ship something in, the next 6 months to year or whatever, it's going to be not a million miles away from where an Oculus Quest is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get this pick. The only thing that I would suggest is that it's not going to be 2022, because Apple in gaming they're not exactly at the forefront. So I think it'll happen eventually, but I think it'll be more like a 2023 thing.
I think with this stuff, they're gonna pay like a whole bunch of money. AR and VR developers, throw money at them, so they've got some stuff that they can say, look, if you subscribe to Apple Arcade, you also get games on this thing.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, that's essentially how Apple Arcade went down when it was launched. Was they just threw a bunch of money at people and said, "Here, make your game work with our thing," and that's essentially what happened.
And it's not like they have a shortage of money, and they definitely want to promote this thing.
If I had to guess a sort of a timeline based on James's picks, James, tell me if this is what you're actually thinking, is there'll be a developer kit announced at WWDC and people will be evangelized on it. And then like toward the end of the year, Apple will make an announcement that they're going to launch it. And maybe that rolls into 22, but they will have made they announced that they're going to ship it in the fall. Does that sort of fit with your timeline here?
I don't. It's hard to say, but I think the one thing, like when they did like Apple TV and things like that, developers could get an early version of that, and they had like I think it was a couple of months head start. And similar,
I have one of those Apple TVs.
But the AR VR stuff is such a different way of doing it. I mean, the Apple TV, it's basically like writing an iPhone app. But this is, I think, this goes way beyond the pics, but I think they're going to have to introduce, whole UI frameworks, new things for this device.
Okay.
And
I guess what I'm asking though is that you picked that this would be a developer kit, but you're also saying when they launch it, they're going to have titles. So those are like developers who were brought in before the launch of the developer kit?
No, I'm saying that when they, Apple is going to announce that it will have titles at the launch of the headset. I'm saying that announcement will happen next year.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily saying that the titles ship, but I think as when they do their at WWDC, they're obviously going to talk about the consumer headset, not just say, "Oh, we've got this thing. It's only for developers. Everybody else look away." So they're going to talk about it, and they're going to like say what their goals are and what kind of things they want to do. So yeah,
John, I feel like this headset thing is our opportunity to dethrone James.
I think it really is. He's all in this year.
Has to be done. You've got to be brave with your picks. You need passion. So I'm told.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I'm going to do the thing that I always do that you guys give me a hard time for, which is I try to include myself in at least one of my picks. So here it is.
It's always about Jason.
It is. It's always about me. I love picking myself. Come on. So this is my choice, and I know that we're in a rough time right now in terms of the pandemic, but I'm going to choose to look on the bright side and be optimistic. And I'm going to predict that I will set foot on the Apple Park campus this year by invitation. I'm not going to break in.
Does this count if you go for a job interview?
No, because of the rules. I can't induce it. Okay, I would have to agree to that. If they really secretly wanted to offer me a job by a mysterious figure saying, "Come to the Apple Park campus and go in this entrance, and we will tell you more will be revealed then at the Cafe Max or whatever," I'd be like, "Okay,
meet me in the underground parking lot, right spot E31."
What I'm really saying is what I'm trying to encompass with this pick is, first off, that there might be an event with limited press at the Steve Jobs Theater, but also potentially that they might do a briefing in person, because those happen in briefing rooms. So I don't want to just pick the Steve Jobs Theater. And if there's something else where sometimes they do weird stuff. Apple hasn't done this so much, but sometimes they do weird stuff where they're like, come to see our AR thing, and it'll be out by the rainbow in the center, but that would still be an invitation to Apple Park. I'm just saying, I will get back to Apple Park, which I have not been into since 2019 iPhone event, I think.
Oh,
so yeah.
Wow. Well, I want to exclude the visitor center, Jason, because I don't want you driving down there this weekend and buying a T-shirt.
Well, first off, the visitor center's not going to invite me, and two,
True.
it's not the campus, right? It's across the street.
It's very deliberately kept apart from.
Yes. They don't let the Apple Store buyers in the real campus. There's the gates and the.
You can go up to the roof and you can look at Apple Park through the trees, and you can see like a little glimpse of it. But no, it is very. There's a big wall.
All right, I just want to clarify that because I don't want any shenanigans like we had last year.
Oh no shenanigans.
I think that this is actually a fairly solid pick because I had a draft pick which I'm not picking this time, but I think that they're not going to have WWDC, but I think they are going to get. When they have this headset reveal, they're going to get people down to try it on because, unlike most of the other products, I think actually using it in person is going to be such a big thing about it.
All right. John, we're in round 4 of the lightning round. What's your choice?
All right. Well, this pick is probably wish casting on my part, but you got to lead with your heart sometimes. So I'm going to say that Apple...
It's part of the passion.
It is. I'm going to say that Apple finally updates Safari reading list because they haven't touched it since they created it, basically. And I would just... All I want is something like folders, for instance, or offline mode that actually works.
Are you saying that, Apple is the kind of company that puts out features and then just never touches them again?
It happens once in a while, once in a great while, but... Or, by great, I mean most of the time. but yeah, it does happen.
I think this is wish casting, but I love it.
It is wish casting. I understand.
James?
Okay, now this is my furthest out pick, I think. The aforementioned AR VR headset is going to have a sensor on it that can detect mouth shapes and other facial expressions. And the reason that I'm saying things like this is so that when you're having FaceTime 3D call with somebody, this thing can animate your face of your avatar or whatever based on your actual expressions. So I mean,
wow, you're heavy into the Memoji land here.
Well,
aren't you?
We know Tim loves his Memoji. Just imagine like the front facing sensor on an iPhone, but that pointed down at your face.
I mean, I'm okay with this pick. I came to the realization a little while ago that Memoji is one of those stealth features that Apple has been talking about a lot, thinking that it's just like, why are they trying to make Memojis happen so hard? And now I realize that it's because of AR and VR, that they want everybody to have a personalized avatar for themselves once they do a FaceTime where they're wearing a headset.
And they added like arms and stuff in one of the recent updates. Yeah, I think we're heading for full Memojification.
If it's between the Memoji and Mark Zuckerberg's avatar in the metaverse, I'll go with Memoji every time. I'm just saying.
I don't love the Memoji art style, but at least we're not all using Bitmoji. Because I really don't like Bitmoji.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry to everybody who likes Bitmoji. I do not like them. I'm going to make a Stagecraft pick now, which is at some point in 2022, there will be a video made for an Apple event of some kind featuring Ted Lasso, a pre-filmed Ted Lasso bit. They're going to do a Ted Lasso bit. They're shooting the 3rd season of Ted Lasso, and I think that there will be something in there that'll be like a little comedy bit that they will use. I think Apple is not going to stop trying to exploit Ted Lasso at every point, and I think that this is, now that they've won all the awards and all of that and are back in production, now is the time where they're going to say, can you make us write up a little comedy bit that we'll do for the next Apple event, and that they will. So that's my pick. Is just like, never underestimate Apple's promotion of Ted Lasso.
I can totally see a slightly nervous Tim backstage being given a pep talk by Ted. I mean, that just feels like it's so surprising it hasn't happened already.
Yeah, that's true too. They could do it. They could do it then. Well, now that they're in production, they couldn't do it. They could do it with the cast, but they're right. Jason Sudeikis could just come out and shoot that somewhere. They could do a fake backstage in London. There are lots of ways to do it. I'm just saying, how will they resist? So I don't think they will.
I'm hoping for the claymation version, like the little Christmas short that they did with a little clay Tim coming out on the stage.
Oh, man. The Apple holiday special in claymation.
Yes.
That's what we need. Next year, we should do our holiday special in claymation. Nobody will know. We could do it now. We could just say we're in claymation now, and nobody would know.
We are. I mean, what are you saying? Of course we are.
Of course we are. We are. It's officially it. Last round, John. What's your last pick?
All right. Well, you know that Apple bought Primephonic in 2021, and I think that we will see in 2022 the introduction of a classical music-focused app. I think this is kind of a lock. They've all but said that they're doing this, and I think that music is ripe for a little bit of a refresh, both with breaking out something like classical music, which doesn't fit the model of the music app as it exists today, but also possibly, and this is not part of the pick, splitting out streaming and owned music. I really think that ought to be done at some point. I'm not sure that that'll ever be done, but I think classical is different enough that they will, in fact, do a separate classical app.
I've got a suggestion for the name of the app, John. Classical music.
That would be very, very appropriate, Jason.
Right? We got music and classical music.
The problem with that is it's too long to fit on an iPhone screen.
Oh,
so
true.
I think it's just going to be classical.
Oh, maybe it'll be like class ...
Yes.
music.
Classy.
Yeah, that's good. I'm just saying, and the Apple Music's right there, so just Apple. It's classical music. Come on, make
Classical
it happen.
Apple. Classic.
Oh, James.
So this is also wish casting in a way. My pick is that no Apple executive will say the words metaverse, blockchain, or NFT during any Apple event in 2022.
Oh, I think that's a good call, actually.
I agree.
I will be really disappointed if they do. Yeah.
So will I.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed
Yeah.
to use that word. No, I think you're right. I think even if Apple did things that were involving the metaverse, the blockchain, and the NFT, the NFTs, I think that they wouldn't call it that because Apple's too proud, and they would be like, no, this isn't blockchain. This is using secure encryption technology to verify your right. They would tech it up and Apple it up, and they wouldn't call it blockchain.
And pretty much any company that's announced something with NFTs has had to do a notes apology about 3 days later, saying that they have dropped all plans to do it. So, or I should say any reputable company.
I like it. And I like the stagecraft picks, so thank you. I'm going to go way out on a limb, guys, with the vaguest of picks, and yet I think it's risky because you never know with Apple. I predict, and I'm picking for my last pick, the last pick of the pickies for this year, Apple will introduce a new service with a monthly fee option.
Classical music.
Huh? Could be anything.
Yes.
I don't care, but it's like Apple will find another way to pull money out of your wallet. That's my
I can't
prediction.
see that it be the classical music thing because they're not going to pull all the existing classical music out of the Apple Music app. But yeah, I could see definitely them doing something. Apple loves services revenue.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. That's why I think it's a tricky pick is I don't know whether it's, that would be another name we could call this the Trickies. Well, Pickies is fine.
That's not going to catch on.
Tricky Pickies. So I do think that I struggle to figure out what it is, but I have faith in Apple.
I've got a suggestion, and I think
Okay.
it's going to be a difficult one. They do a paid service around health.
Interesting.
You know,
Interesting.
so for $10 a month, we will tell you if you've got a deadly disease, or I don't know, whatever. But they could do something. I think there's a lot in the health space, which is also very highly regulated. But if, say, they introduce new sensors on an Apple Watch, which go beyond the kind of like just base consumer level stuff, like I don't know, blood sugar monitoring and that kind of thing. Maybe they have a service that goes along with that.
So what you're saying, James, is your Apple Watch can tell you whether you're about to die, but only if you pay $9.99 a month.
Well, I don't think Tim is going to like announce it like that, but yeah.
Be a shame if something happened to you.
Right.
Nice body you've got there. Shame if something happened to it.
All right. Well, that does it. That wraps up the annual pickies, and we'll just have to be back here in a year to do the calculations and figure out how we all did. But we'll do that.
I'm feeling pretty confident.
I'm feeling really good about my picks this year.
I feel like the WWDC will tell all because that'll be James's all or nothing bet on AR, and then we'll know
definitely.
the details. And of course, I imagine the connected listeners, our favorite connected listeners, the connected, as I like to call them, the connected. I'm sure somebody out there has already created a Picky's spreadsheet, which is got all of the deductions for points and all of that in there, and the extra bonuses for the first half of the year, and I'm sure it's already there. So thank you for that, and we'll watch out for that. Let's move on, but before we do that, we have our next sponsor. This episode of Connected is brought to you by Connected Plus. What does the plus mean? The plus means that you get more of Connected. You get more connected content. You get more connected japes.
I mean, the fourth J is japes after all.
That's right. Triple J plus japes. That's us. You get more japes. You get more content. Now, you might think that you get more ads, but actually what you get is more of fewer ads. Think about it. You're getting more of less.
Oh, I see. I think what you're saying is the plus that what it really means is that the plus is the new dollar sign. There's more for us, right? You, me, and James, right?
Yeah, that's it. And James knows from math that it's a plus within, in parentheses, there's a minus, which is the ads then are removed. And it's an addition of by subtraction, essentially.
Exactly.
And we were going to call it Connected Pro, but James insisted on plus because, math, and also Connected Minus didn't sound very good, and Connected Divide or Multiply, Integral, it doesn't really work. So plus.
Connected dollar sign had problems with our back-end system, so.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's
also a little too real.
Yeah. I'm all about the plus, guys. I'm good with it.
All right. So go to relay.fm/connected/join. We should get a domain. We should get like connected.plus or something, but we don't have it yet. So relay.fm/connected/join to join Connected Plus and get more japes and give us money. Thank you. All right. We have lots of leftover questions in the Connected Q&A doc, so we're going to blow them out. We're going to do a lot of Q&A for the rest of this show, this holiday special. Now, we have 20 loaded up in the show doc, and I have a Dice by PCalc here with a D20 loaded and ready to go. And so I'm going to roll the dice, and we're going to answer some questions. Do you guys ready?
And we're going to stay here until we've done all 20.
All 20. That's right.
There's going to be a lot of repeats next to the end, but we'll just keep going.
Yeah, you're right. It's just going to be how it is. Okay, here we go.
13.
TM Trains writes, what road trip, i.e. driving in a car to get places, would you want to go on that you haven't yet?
So here's how I think I'll answer this. I've got two answers. In the U.S., I'd say the Grand Tetons. I've not spent nearly enough time out west, especially in Wyoming and northwest parts of the U.S. So that's where I'd go in the U.S. But abroad, I'd go all over Italy. I'd like to see both coasts and go from the south to the north and end up in the Alps. So I'd like to see more of Italy. I've only seen Rome and Florence so far.
James, what do you think?
Well, for driving a car, I think... So my answer is going to be the States. And I'm picking that because it means one of two things. Either somebody has built an extremely long bridge between the UK and the US, or I have one of those cars that I can just drive into the water and I can just go along and then I'll drive up on a beach somewhere, maybe Hawaii.
You're James Bond is what you are.
Well, I can't really comment on that, but they are casting the new one. And yeah, so that's what I would like. But I would actually like to do a car road trip of the States.
How about, we're actually talking about doing this at some point. Lauren and I want to drive to visit our friends in Edmonton, which is way the heck up there. So we would be driving through Nevada and Utah and Idaho and Montana, and then through a whole lot of Alberta to get all the way up to Edmonton, and then maybe come back going through like by Banff and through the mountains and then down and into Washington and Oregon.
I've done the Canadian Rockies years ago, and it was fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. All right, let's roll the dice. 8. This is from David S. How do you use messages? Do you use the subject field or read receipts? How often do you send memojis? Lots of questions here. How long do you keep your messages? 30 days, 1 year, or forever? And do you sync them with iCloud, or do they live separately on each device?
Well, I think I use messages not a million miles away from how I used SMS. I don't use many of the features. I do use read receipts, which I like, although they can be a problem. I keep my messages forever, or And I don't have messages in iCloud switched on, but they still sync between all the devices. Whether they're backed up is another matter. But yeah, I don't really do anything fancy. I sent Memojis for about a day when they were introduced. And yeah, I guess the thing that I do now that I didn't do is I react to things, with a little thumbs up or a heart.
All right. So subject field, never used it. And if someone uses it with me, I think I would probably block them. In terms of,
I'll keep that in mind.
Okay, keep that in mind, guys. In terms of read receipts, only with my family, not with friends and other people. Memojis, no, not really. Hardly ever. Maybe a couple of times. And I archive everything. I keep it all. But I don't really get hung up on whether or not it's on, my messages are on every single device. If I feel like I have to start fresh on an iPhone or something, I'll do that, and I won't worry about having all those old messages on there. But yeah, I sync everything with iCloud too. So I think that's it. I will ask you guys one question. I'm going to have a follow-up question here as a friend of the show and listener myself, is that I want to know whether you hesitate to send a message to somebody in a faraway time zone because you're concerned about sending a message very late or not. I mean, personally, I will answer this first, which is I don't. I feel like that's on them. I know enough people in enough places that if they don't know how to put on Do Not Disturb, that's kind of on them, and they can. I'll send it even if it's middle of the night for them.
Yeah, my problem is more at the very early end of things. It's like, do I send this message knowing that I've got up and I'm looking at something, but they're asleep? But as you say, for a start, you do get the little notification now that says that they have notifications silenced, so you can be reasonably sure in that case. But yeah, people should figure out how to put Do Not Disturb on.
So I'll answer the follow-up question first. I'm also very much in the feeling of I'm not going to worry about it because they should be using Do Not Disturb, and I assume that everybody that I'm communicating with is probably got stuff like that set up. I think about it, but I usually don't worry about it. I work with so many people like James who are in far off time zones that I just think of things to tell them, and I tell them, and I figured that they'll get up in the morning and they'll see it, and then they'll answer me, and then I will be asleep, and then I will see it the next morning, and then for the few hours that we're awake together, we could have a conversation. I just had this bite me. Well, it didn't really bite me, but it made me worried for a minute, which was that I sent a question to Rosemary Orchard about like a podcast that she had done for The Incomparable. And like if she had she did the map capture for Total Party Kill, so she had a video file and I couldn't find it, and I was like, okay, I'll just ask her in the Relay Slack, do you have that file? And it was 4 a.m. UK time, 3 a.m. And she answered me, and I was like, "Oh no, did I just wake you up?" And she said, "No, I was up. She had some insomnia or something, and she was up." And I was like, "Oh, thank God," because I had that moment of like, "Oh no,
did you wake her
thing
up?
That I don't really need immediately at all. I just wanted to lay it there so she'd find it the next day." But she said it was fine, and she was actually up, or she was lying to me and very polite, which is also possible.
I have noticed that my waking hours have slipped more towards sort of the US time zones because I'm just talking to the likes of you all the time, and I don't go to bed until like 2-3 a.m.
Mine have slipped closer to Europe, but that's a whole other story.
And as for the rest of this question, I'm similar to John. Don't use the subject field. I do use read receipts. I just leave them on. I don't care. I never send him emojis, and I do iCloud messages in the cloud, and basically assume that they'll stay there forever. So yeah, that's it. Shall we roll?
Go for it.
11.
Max R. If Apple was going to force another album into people's music libraries, what would they pick?
So I'm going to say that Coldplay fits the same vibe these days and would be equally roundly mocked if it appeared in their music library. So yeah, some terrible Coldplay album.
Interesting. Well, one thing that I actually have found the U2 album very useful for is that whenever I see it showing up in my AirPlay list, I know that there's something wrong with one of my HomePods because it's got this special status inside music where if it's not connecting to the rest of your library, it'll still always connect to Age of Innocence. But I'm going to go with a future Bruce Springsteen album. I'm thinking that Bruce Springsteen, while he's an icon and a great musician, is really not quite with the current times, and I assume not super popular with the youngest generations. So I'm thinking Bruce Springsteen.
I think that is a great pick, because what you want, and I love you too, but that's not a good album.
No, it's not.
And it's not. It's not a good album. Apple wants to be cool, but they need to find somebody who's gonna be happy that they bought literally everybody in the world their album.
Yeah, they want to be cool like a dad wants to be cool, and with about the same success rate.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna say Billie Eilish. They're gonna pony up for Billie Eilish, and they're just gonna give her album away to everybody. Maybe it's an EP or something. Maybe it's not a whole album, but like, yeah,
that's a good pick, because she is on an Amazon Echo after all. I mean, that it feels like that's in the same vein.
Yeah, I mean, all these tech. If you're a big artist like that, it's great, because all these tech companies are just throwing you money, and so you take it.
Absolutely,
that's what you do. You take it.
12.
Jeremy, I'm incredibly hyped by how AR and VR, James, could change how we interact with others in the world. What piece or idea of future tech are you most looking forward to in your lifetime?
Well, I hope this is my lifetime. I would like some medical tech that directly interfaces with my nervous system and lets me switch off specific pain receptors and things like that, because, I don't know how much longer I've got left, but it would be nice to be able to enjoy it.
All right. I'm going to go with, I've had a Roomba now for about 6 months, and I kind of like it. The little guy gets, around my house, sweeping up my floors. But what I really want him to do is to clean the bathrooms, and I want a robot to do that for me. I haven't had a robot do that, and that would be great to kind of put that chore to the side and let a robot take care of it.
Future tech or self-driving cars. I'm just going to say it. I don't think it's actually going to happen, but I'm going to hold out hope that there would be self-driving cars at some point, especially by the time that I'm older and not able to drive well. Or if I can't see well or whatever it is, like I really would love at that point to be able to still have mobility. And I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but I would love that. Let's roll the dice.
All right.
3.
Ryan, is Universal Control ever going to ship?
I say yes, in the spring as a demo at the next event.
I'm going to say yes, it's going to ship, because it's not like hardware. You can keep changing stuff in software up to the last minute, and you can always push it off. But things like, the air power, you're kind of locked in on a design fairly early, and it's not as flexible. But software, yeah, you can scrap it and you can start again, which, who knows, they may have done.
I picked it. So yes is my answer. Before WWDC, it will ship. Maybe it won't all be there. Maybe it won't be as originally conceived, but I think it will ship.
15.
Justin Hamilton, if you opened a connected cafe, what kind of food would you serve? Wow.
Oh, good question. I've got one for this. I would serve pizza, first of all, but I would also have an extensive and excellent beer list. But here's the thing. I would have one bad beer on my list, and if you ordered that beer, you would be kicked out of the bar and banned for life.
Wow.
That is how I would decide who my customers are. So that's the connected cafe right there. Pizza and beer, but with the threat, if you pick that one beer, that you'll never be able to come in again.
Oh, for my pick, possibly similar lines, I just wrote down revenge. Served piping hot.
James, revenge is a dish best served cold. What are you talking about?
It's not. You want it hot. Trust me.
Well, John, it's a theme of this episode. John keeps picking my things because pizza and beer is absolutely what I would pick. I thank you, John, for not saying I'm also going to put a bad pizza on the menu and it's got pineapple on it, because that would offend me.
Oh, no. I'm into pineapple pizza myself, Jason.
All right,
we're in lockstep on that one.
We're okay.
I'm looking forward to this pizza, beer, and revenge cafe that we are coming up with.
I am going to serve burritos because I'm from California and everybody should like burritos. Yeah. Burritos are good, especially good burritos are good. So you can have burritos at our place. And that's the Triple J Café. opening in locations in San Francisco, Chicago, and Glasgow.
Yes.
All right, here goes the dice.
17.
Wow, we haven't had a double yet.
I know that I could calculate the probability, but I'm not going to.
Don't do it. 17 is Sam. Keyboards, what's the deal?
So I say keyboards are passing fad. You know, in the brave new world of AR headsets, we're going to be typing directly onto tables or in the air or something, and physical keyboards are just going to be like a thing for old people.
Wow, you are all in on this, James. All in on this AR thing.
James, are you wearing AR goggles right now?
I couldn't possibly comment.
If
If I had a developer prototype, you know, I'd be under NDA.
What I like, I didn't use mechanical keyboards for a long time, and keyboards, like, the deal is that you need to type letters, and so you need a keyboard. But I like, assuming Sam is asking about mechanical keyboards or enthusiasm in keyboards, I really like the sound and the tactility of it, and that's why I say to James, you're going to need to replicate the sound and the tactility of it. Sound you can do. Tactility, you're going to need something. Maybe it's just gloves or something that will give you some force as you're doing your typing on the table. I'm willing to accept that that's a possibility, but that's what I want, is I want to be able to do it by feel, and it's hard to do it by feel when you're literally feeling nothing.
Yeah, no, I get that.
There could be some kind of little device that you place on the table that, you know, at least makes it vibrate in ways when your fingers are over the keys or something. Yeah,
you have a haptic feedback table. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, James.
Or just gloves. Just the haptic feedback gloves.
It's like a giant magic trackpad. I don't know what the deal is with keyboards. It's not something that I've personally ever been into. I actually like the Apple keyboards a lot. I have experimented with like Logitech MX keys and those keyboards in the past, but now that I have Touch ID on my keyboard, I love it, and I actually kind of like the shallow throw of the Apple keyboards. So that's kind of how I go with things. I don't, you know.
That's the deal. That's fine. Everybody should use the keyboards that they like. I think that some people don't like the laptop style keyboards, which Apple now fancies. I think Apple is absolutely making the right decision since most people use laptops, to make laptop style keyboards the norm, and they've been doing that for a long time, and I think that's perfectly fine. That said, I prefer the ones with more travel and more clickiness, and I love the Magic Keyboard for iPad. I think it's great, but I would prefer a mechanical keyboard if I could help it. That's fine. I'm not a it's something we said before the show about like pronouncing GIF or GIF or whatever. Like, there are more than one way of doing things, and there's not just one right or wrong way.
That is right.
You can pronounce things different ways. You can like different keyboards. It's okay. All right, rolling the dice.
14.
Still haven't gotten a double. We are lucky today. Brantz wrote, what piece of media, if any, helped you get through the deepest and longest parts of quarantine?
Well, for me, it started with Animal Crossing on the Switch, and there was Ted Lasso as well. But really, the thing that helped me most through the worst parts of quarantine, or first quarantine, however you want to put it, was playing the White Sparrow set of adventures on Total Party Kill. That was a great set of things, and, you know, basically hanging out with your friends.
Yeah, that was fun, and that's we played that out. The White Sparrow Adventures on Total Party Kill, we played them out this year on the feed, but they were very much a height of lockdown project where we were all not going anywhere or doing anything, and we spent our spring and a little bit of summer just playing a lot of D&D, which has taken a year to roll out. But I agree with you, James. It was just nice being with people, even if it was on Zoom, and having fun and playing a game. That was a real sanity helper.
I think that I'm going to go with music in general, but specifically Phoebe Bridgers' Punisher album was an album that I had on repeat for a lot of 2020. So that album helped, even though it's kind of a moody album at times, and maybe could have sent me into a deeper funk. I liked it a lot, and it helped in general. But music is something, I don't know. I did about 1,000 hours of music in 2020, so. But that was right at the top of the list.
Yeah, it's funny how music connects you with a particular time. I have that where there was a NaNoWriMo that I wrote a novel in a month. And there was a very particular Imogen Heap album that I played over and over and over. And every time I hear it, I think of that time. For 2020, it was Notes on a Conditional Form by the 1975. That was the album that I had. Apple did its little thing, its little like 2020 and rewind at the end of the year for my Apple Music account, and it was like you listen to, and it was every track on Notes on a Conditional Form at the top, and then some other stuff. And I was like, yep, that's about right. I just listened to that album over and over, and it's. These days I listen to a lot of playlists. I listen to a lot of the Apple Music curated playlists. I'm listening to a lot of singles or tracks, but not whole albums. But every now and then an album just completely captures me. And last year it was Notes on a Conditional Form. This year it's the Church's album, Screen Violence. Same thing.
Yep, great album.
And for TV, it's Taskmaster. I was introduced to Taskmaster last year and found every episode. And we watched those as a family because my daughter came home from college and my son was, of course, logged down with us. And so we were all just, because he's a high school student, so we were all just in the house all the time. And that was one of our kind of nesting things that we did as a family, is just we watched Taskmaster. And there are not that many shows that will get all of us together and enthusiastic. But that, if you haven't seen it, there are episodes on YouTube. It's a UK game show, sort of comedy show, sort of, where a bunch of comedians have to do silly tasks, and it is hilarious. And that was our pandemic lifesaver for us as a family.
And I believe a lot of it is on YouTube officially.
Yes, it is officially on the Taskmaster channel. Even if you're in the US, you can see a lot of episodes. It's great. I'll roll the dice. I'm gonna cross out Brant's here. I gotta keep track of what we've already covered.
Yep.
6,
Another original. This is from JD. What is your favorite food?
I'm going to say beef massaman curry with Thai basil. And this was a dish that I had the first time I came to the US in Mountain View, of all places. And I spent about a decade, or more accurately, my wife spent about a decade trying to recreate that dish. And it turned out it was the Thai basil, which was the little addition that made it perfect. And that is absolutely my favorite.
Interesting. Pizza's a food group for me. So I already started a cafe with pizza. I'm going to choose pizza for my favorite food too.
That's good. My favorite food is peanut butter. I realized this like 5 years ago. I always would say like favorite dish. And so I would say like flank steak or something like that. There's a favorite dishes out there. I do a soy ginger marinated flank steak that's really great. But food, period, it's peanut butter. I have peanut butter every day. I'll eat it as a snack. I like it in stuff. I like the flavor of it in cookies or whatever. I love it. And I know that it's not for everybody, but it is for me. And if I ever became a vegetarian, I would subsist on peanut butter. That's what I'm saying.
It's a good thing you don't have any co-hosts with a peanut allergy.
I have a question for you, Jason.
Yes,
what's your position on pretzels with peanut butter on the inside?
I kind of get it. I don't love them, but I get it because you've got the little pretzely crunch and you've got the salty flavor. I'm not going to say what you probably expect me to say, which is it's just pretzels getting in the way of good peanut butter, because I get it. It's not my favorite, but I don't think it's offensive. Like, I can see why people would want to find other ways of enjoying peanut butter, and it's a lot less messy if they're inside the pretzel than like outside it. So
that is true. I think they usually use an inferior peanut butter, which is part of the problem, I think.
Yes, that's for sure. I mean, I use the natural peanut butter like in my day-to-day life, the kind that you have to stir up or the peanut oil separates. And I know that a lot of people, they've engineered peanut butter. They add sweetener to it, or they add a different kind of oil that is shelf stable and doesn't separate at room temperature. I prefer the natural kind. The stuff that's in the pretzels is undoubtedly the most adulterated peanut butter, right? It's going to be the stuff that the oil's been replaced or removed and the sugar's been added. So it's not really peanut butter anymore, but it's got that flavor. It's a nice flavor. I like it.
I know for our gifts next year, I'm going to write down to get you a peanut butter maker. Just put peanuts in the top and peanut butter comes out the bottom.
6.
Oh, we already did.
Oh, that's a double.
Yeah.
10.
Matt V, you're both successful writers on the internet. Oh, burn, James, burn. Any advice for writers starting out well past the blogging heyday of yesteryear?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a humble lifetime award-winning developer, but what do I know?
Wow. Nothing about writing.
I don't know, Jason. Where do you want to go? I think where I would go with this is that there's no one path that works for everybody. Just look at me and Jason. We have very different backgrounds for sure. So
I didn't go to law school.
yes.
You didn't work in a magazine?
No.
People ask me about this every now and then, and what I say is the great thing about being on the internet today. I know that it's not the same as it was, but the great thing on the internet today is if you're interested in something, first off, you can always publish it yourself,
Right?
and that shows your writing to the world, and you may get an audience from that. But also, you're showing your writing to the world, and other people will take notice. Or if you want to approach somebody and say, "I would like to write for you," you can say, look at what I write. And that does two things. One, they can read your writing and say, oh, this person can write. And two, this person is interested in the subject matter that they're writing about, which is what I want to use them for. And that is not something, it used to be like, here's a clip from my college newspaper, or like I would hear from people who wanted to write for Macworld who'd be like, I have nothing published anywhere that you can read. And it was not that understandable even in like the 2000s, but it's certainly not understandable now. So I'd say number one thing is write. Also, you'll get better. The more articles you write, if you say, I want to write about apps like John and Federico, the more of those articles you write, the better you'll get. And then you start taking the old ones down and keeping the newer ones and saying, see, look at my app writing. It's good. And I think that is a huge, as somebody who's been on the other side looking for good writers, having that evidence in public view of your enthusiasm and of your capability is the number one best thing when I'm looking for a new writer.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, I think the fact my writing has improved so much just over the last 5 years or so that I've been doing this kind of full time. And it's all just because I've written like 1,800 stories or something since I started in the late 2015. And you know, that's kind of what it takes, is just constantly writing. And I'm with you, Jason. I mean, we actually are always on the lookout for somebody to write with us and do some freelance work. And it's always, we keep an eye on everybody who's writing about Apple. It may not always look like we are, but we are. And there actually aren't that many people doing it kind of on a consistent basis right now. But if we're ever going to add somebody to help us out, it's because they've got that catalog of writing that they've already done that we like, we think's good, and shows an interest.
Yeah. So invest in yourself and put in that time and do the work, and maybe you start not posting it, and then when you're proud of it, you post it. Nobody needs to read it right away, but it's out there, and then somebody may notice, or you can send a link to somebody, and you can do that all yourself now, which you couldn't before. You can't like put your articles in a magazine back in the day, but you can just do it on the web now, and it's fine.
And I would say that all of this advice does actually cross over for development as well. You know, if you want to write apps, it's exactly the same thing. It's just keep writing, keep doing things.
And no, it's not, life's not fair, right? Like, you're not necessarily going to be seen, and you may not be as good at it as you want to be. And like, there are all sorts of caveats there. But
yeah, there's all kinds of luck involved too, but it's like you put yourself in a position of having luck by actually doing the work first.
Exactly. And you would be surprised, as somebody who's dealt with a lot of freelance writers over the years, you would be surprised what you can get by honing your craft, which is by doing it over and over again, by being visible, showing your work, by having an enthusiasm, and then the last one that I'll throw in there is and being reliable. Because let me tell you, you get that chance, you make your deadlines, and it's like lights go off, a rainbow appears to editors when you ask somebody for something and they give it to you. And if you don't, you're just forget it. Like I loved at Macworld finding writers who were on time and did good work and were responsive. And these seem like logical things. Like, oh, well, of course, who would not do that if they want an opportunity? Oh, you would be surprised. There are lots of people who want an opportunity, but then won't be timely with it, or will do a shoddy job. And it's like, you just wasted your opportunity. So back in the day, by the way, a little side note, Dan Morin came up to me on the floor at Macworld Expo and said, I would like to be a writer. What should I do? And actually what I told him back in the day, you don't have to do this so much now, was Tidbits, that is still published. Adam and Tanya Engst and a bunch of other people work on or I guess it's Adam and Josh Centers and a bunch of people work on Tidbits. But they would often publish articles, but they were they didn't pay for outside writers, but they would sometimes publish articles by outside writers. And I think Dan actually did an article or two there. But that's the beauty of like having Squarespace or Medium or something. It's like you don't need anybody to keep any gate for you to just get started. Dice?
Let's do it.
By PCalc. Here we go.
3,
We already did 3.
It's repeats from here on in.
18,
Oh, this is from High Definition Image of Big Bird. What single decision by Apple would you reverse and why?
So I would say making services revenue a big profit center, because I feel it's led to a number of very questionable decisions of late.
So I've got an old one and a new one. My old one is something that I've mentioned before recently, which is the elimination of the airport line of routers, because I feel like those would be the perfect fit for some sort of home strategy, the home strategy that we're hoping that Apple will come up with in 2022. But getting rid of them, I think, was short-sighted. Maybe they weren't making money. Maybe it was too much R&D to keep up with the Eros of the world and other routers. But I think there was value there to Apple beyond just the dollars that came in on profit margins with routers. And that's been squandered. And I'd like to see that, I wish that those would come back. Then close second would be rebuilding shortcuts with Swift UI in the same year that they were moving it to the Mac. And this one is obviously very close, cuts very close for the work that I do. And I just don't, I think Swift UI is great, and I think it is the future of developing UIs on Apple's flat platforms, but I don't think an app like Shortcuts was the right candidate for it at this particular time. And I'm sure, these things are tied together, that moving to the Mac and doing everything in Swift UI, there was a hope that there would be some sort of synergies and savings there. Instead, I think what Apple ended up with was a distraction that has kept them away from improving the actions and other, fundamental features of the app itself.
I will say that, Swift UI isn't going to get better unless Apple has internal apps that are using it. It's the same thing with Catalyst, which is used for messages and podcasts and
Yep.
other apps. So it's good that they have something that is pushing the technology more than other apps, but I think they probably didn't mesh together as well that they hoped. And it's been a difficult year.
I think it was just a little too early. I agree with you 100% that they should be pushing, they should be dog fooding all this stuff and pushing it forward using their own apps. But I think that this was probably not the right app to do it with, especially since they had to do all the work to bring automator actions over to the Mac into Shortcuts and other things that were, just launching that as an app itself, no matter what technology you use, I think was probably a big job, and adding Swift UI to that pile made things worse, I believe.
Yeah, I want to give the crowd-pleasing answer here, except I think it's the wrong one now, which is whatever happened in the mid-2010s where Apple kind of took its eye off the ball of the Mac. And we got a weird Mac Pro, and we got the butterfly keyboard, and we got the laptops that nobody seemed to love that took the ports off and all of that. But the problem with that is that Apple Silicon wasn't ready to go, and I think maybe that it was really a combination of both. They knew they wanted to do their own thing, and they were kind of biding their time and also losing their way a little bit. And the fact is, it's all basically resolved now. So I could change it so it was a little bit better in the late 2010s, but I think we'd end up more or less where we are now regardless. So I'm going to go back to like the 2010, 2011, and I want to whisper in somebody's ear, maybe Eddie Q, I don't know, maybe it's Tim Cook, and say, don't have the attitude that if the App Store is bringing in a lot of money, that means you shouldn't change your policies. I know that's really conceptual, but I think the root of a lot of Apple's failure in terms of the quality of the App Store, in terms of the relationship with developers, and in terms of the take and how contentious that's been, their take on how much money developers can make in the App Store. I think a lot of it is rooted in the fact that Apple had such an instant hit with the App Store that they just decided either charitably not to mess with success or uncharitably, were so arrogant about their success that they thought that they hadn't made any mistakes, when in fact they had built it on a questionable technical foundation and they were alienating developers, but they were laughing all the way to the bank. And so if I could do some whisper in someone's ear, you should really not get complacent. Because in the long run, it will cause a lot of turmoil, and your stuff isn't as good as you think it is. That's what I would do.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. I mean, I think a big part of that is how Apple fell backwards into gaming and how gaming became a big thing on the App Store, despite Apple's kind of lack of understanding of the gaming market.
Apple always goes backward into gaming. Never forward, only backward.
8,
Duplicate.
3,
Duplicate.
Duplicate.
This is going to be great.
11,
Duplicate.
2,
2 is from 3 raccoons in a trench coat. If you could swap places with a relay host, who would you choose?
So I have a lot of problems with this question. Am I inhabiting their body or just taking over their whole life in my body?
I think you're just taking over their podcast.
Well, I mean, like I could do with the body of somebody younger. So, who's the youngest relay host? I would happily swap places there, just so that I don't have to put up with this one. But I answering the wider question, I don't know. I mean, it's a question of like, you want to take over somebody? Do you want to take over somebody because you want to like podcast with their partner or something? It's a difficult one. I don't think I can answer this without it like being rude to one or other people.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to say that I would take over Mac Power Users from Steven, and then it would just be me and David Sparks, and I we would be great because we both remember all the old Macs from using them and not just from finding them on eBay.
Well, you know what I'm going to go? I'm going to go with Matt Alexander because I think he really paces himself well. I mean, he's got the very best ratio of total number of episodes to longevity on the network. So, I mean, low workflow and longevity. It's a great combination.
Well, I didn't want to insult anybody on the network, but apparently my co-host just back in.
We're okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah. We
2,
just did 2. Come on, Dice by PCalc. Oh, no!
Oh, no.
Do I have to read the question again?
1,
1. Marlies. Both your co-hosts are canceled, but you managed to escape the wrath of Twitter. Who would you start a new podcast with to replace Connected?
Well, Jason and John know what they did to get cancelled. But I would really, I think, as I said before, I'd like to do something with Mike, Stephen, or Federico one day. And I was thinking that we should have a succession plan for this podcast. If anything happens to us.
That's dangerous, though, because then it motivates them to make something happen to us. So that we're not
yeah,
here
I mean, that's
over.
true. But, I think we should, give them a chance.
Never name your successors, James. No, never name your successors.
No.
It's trouble.
Now, when you're gone, they can all sort it out together, but you don't motivate them in any way. This is, if I learned anything from dictators of the past, that's what I learned.
Okay, so we're going to just hold on to our power. Okay.
I think so. I think so. We got to consolidate the Triple J power, I think is the way that works. I'm going to go with Federico because this kid from Italy, he's an up-and-comer. He really is. And I've had a show in mind for a while, and I think I'm going to call it Apple Stories. I bought applestories.net a long time ago, and I think it could make a good podcast. I think we'll talk about Mac apps or something.
I was also going to pick Federico because I thought that he doesn't talk about. I like the iPad Pro and like iPad life a lot, and I don't think he talks about it enough. So I would give him I think we could talk about the iPad, but since you took him, I'll spread some love around. I already do a show with Mike, right? So I'm gonna do Steven. I've taken his spot on Mac Power Users, but we will create some other kind of show about the Mac that Steven and I can do instead after Connected is canceled.
You could maybe do like Laser Writer Power Users or something like that.
All right, that's Laser Writer Power Users. I'm looking forward to that. Let's roll the dice.
10,
Duplicate.
14,
Duplicate. This is good podcasting, people.
3,
Duplicate.
That's what they pay for.
What am I looking for here?
8,
7, 4, 5,
9.
9.
7.
It heard you.
Matt.
It's listening.
Matt C., what is your hottest take about your two co-hosts?
I'm going to say that Jason is much more spicy than he appears, particularly after he's had a drink, because his language becomes filthy.
Yes.
John is a kingpin-like figure who just controls things from the shadows and like tries not to draw attention to himself, but really is pulling all the strings.
I think you're giving me too much attention here, James. I'm a little concerned. You know what? Here's what I can tell you about these two guys. Jason, he's an excellent mini golfer. Not many people know about this, but I've seen him in action.
Yeah,
I've seen him in action on a hot summer day, and he's very good at mini golf. And James, he may not be the greatest mini golf player, but he's great at powering a bar on wheels.
This is very true.
Those are accurate. I would say that John. Let's see. What's my hottest take about John? That John should be on more podcasts. How about that? He's just not. I want more John in my life. I know that seems like a hot take. It's like John wants to be restrained and keep work-life balance, and I think he needs like 10 more podcasts to keep up.
All right.
And James should go to bed earlier.
James is up at all hours. We get texts from him at all hours. No doubt.
He really is. All right, people, we are switching to a new die because there are 6 questions left, and so we're going to go to a D6, and I'm just going to read them in order.
4,
Okay, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Ro ho ho. Maple syrup or honey?
Definitely maple syrup. Good stuff from Canada, not the cheap stuff.
Why can't we have both? I mean, I use honey more than I use maple syrup, but I like both. I guess I'll have to go with honey since I use it more often.
Same as John. I love maple syrup, but I use honey in my tea every day, and I could not go without. So I could, but why would I do that? Also, America makes good maple syrup too.
That's true. Vermont, right there.
Yeah, come on.
2,
Which is Brian. Technology with see-through shells is overdue for a comeback. Time traveler. Which product needs them first?
I'm going to say AirPods or any other wearable, like the headset or whatever, because it just looks more cyberpunk if you can see the bits and they're connected to your ears or whatever. Just, that full you're a cyborg look. That's what I want.
That's very good. That's very good. I think I have to second that only because when you look at things like iPhones and laptops right now, they're 90% battery, and who wants to just look at a battery? So I'm going with the AirPods too.
I'm gonna say the iMac. They're gonna do a throwback edition of the 24-inch iMac that's got a plastic back, and you can look inside and see everything that's in there. And it'll be colored. It'll be a nice color, but you'll also be able to see the back of the monitor and stuff. Cool.
3,
3, 1, 2, 3. Brants, if you had the power at Apple to make one and only one hardware change to an existing Apple product, what would that change be?
I'm say bring the headphone socket back, and I'm not just saying this
to pander
to the audience. I think it is genuinely useful in a wide variety of situations. Still, things like if you're trying to do music or you're trying to do like edit a podcast or whatever, and you want very low latency sound, headphones. The way to go. I
have to use the USB-C to headphone jack connector every time I added a podcast on my iPad.
I think that I'm going to go with more RAM in the 24-inch M1 iMac because I think that would be my machine right now if it had just a little bit more RAM in it.
I'm torn between. I think I'm going to make my runner-up a 12-inch MacBook Air. I just make it smaller. That's an existing Apple product. I'm going to make one change, which is smaller. Smallify it, and alternately, if you would prefer, the iPhone Pro minify it, make it smaller. I like those smaller devices. Make them smaller. I want all the features, smaller package.
1,
cube of follow-up is a dish best served
with an unexpectedly different flavor than you might have been expecting.
Reheated. Obviously, because it's follow-up.
I would say spicy hot with a side of japes.
All right, and we'll serve that in our restaurant. Yes. That has come out of this. All right. Only 2 questions left.
Should flip a coin.
Heads.
Heads is Ben. Ben, how early is it? Is too early for shops to play Christmas music?
December 23rd. I hate it. Make it stop.
Anytime before the weekend after Thanksgiving in the U.S.
I actually agree with John. You could set it to December 1st, but if you're in America and you've got Thanksgiving there as your bulwark against Christmas creep, that's when you do it. Black Friday. Thanksgiving Day is too early. How
Don't you
about
mean
that? Thanksgiving
Black
Day is
Friday month?
Yeah, exactly. Last question, and you get a gold star, Ryan P., because you're the last question. What's a place you traveled to pre-COVID and haven't visited since COVID that you would like to return to?
I typically go on a vacation around this time to Gran Canaria because it's like 4 hours away and is lovely and sunny in December. But my other answer that I'm going to say is Jason's house because I would like to come back and visit.
I will say coffee shops for working because I have not done that since pre-COVID. And I did it a little bit, I guess, when I was in Dublin recently. And I realized how much I missed kind of the change of pace and scenery and working somewhere else. I will admit, though, that it wasn't just a coffee shop. I also worked a little bit at a pub in Dublin. But that's fun, too. But I'm going to try to stay out of bars around Chicago.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Yeah, I am going to say the UK. Ireland, close second, and it's right there. But Europe in general and the UK in particular, I like visiting. I can visit Mike in London. I can visit my other friends in London. And I can go up to Glasgow and say hi to James and Saskia. And it's great, and I miss it. And that's like that road trip, the other trip that we were talking about now. So Lauren and I were going to, for our 50th birthdays, we're going to go to Australia. And, well, that didn't happen. So I'm now realizing that we might actually end up, it may be more likely that we go to something like the UK at some point when things are better again than when they'll let us back into Australia. So maybe it'll happen, but that's what I'm thinking about now. I think that's all the questions, believe it or not.
Yeah.
20 questions.
Wow.
We played Connected 20 questions. We did it.
Another holiday tradition.
It's a Christmas miracle. So next week will be the Connected Year in Review episode. It's going to be great. It's pre-recorded. I think the way to describe it is we rated the months of 2021 based entirely on the Voorhees scale.
Yes, it's going to be nice.
It's going to be nice, but we'll be back here on Connected in 2022.
Absolutely.
But until then, James Thompson, thank you for being here.
It's always a pleasure to podcast with you both.
Always. And John Voorhees, as always, thank you.
Ciao, Jason.
And thanks to everybody else out there for listening. See you later. We promise.